off. These are...
They look like pine cones almost.
They do. They are the beginnings of the male flowers. So these are going to open up and the pollen's going to come out of all these flowers.
That's what makes me get allergies.
So, you know, the cars kind of turn yellow in the spring. That's all the pollen sitting on them, greenish yellow. Now, this one we're talking about male and female flowers being separate. So the female flowers on this plant are usually, there's some little leaves coming out there in, this one has a compound leaf. It comes out in the little axil where it meets. There's a female flower and it gets fertilized. And this one is either a pecan or a walnut. And it's kind of hard to tell, even from the leaves sometimes, if something's a pecan or a walnut. But if you have a pocket knife and you open up one of the little stems, the pecan is smooth all the way inside, and the walnut is chambered. It has little chambers down the middle of the stem.
Well, if you can eat walnuts and pecans, can you eat acorns?
You can, but they are bitter. So plants create bitter compounds, also to get animals to not eat them. So what Native Americans would do is they would take some kind of cloth that they had woven, and they would fill a sack with acorns. They'd put it in a stream for a week, and then after that week they would take it out. They would open up all the acorns. They would dry them out, probably over a fire, and then grind them up kind of with a mortar and pestle rock, and make it into flour, and then mix it maybe with like animal lard and make little, you know, kind of biscuits, kind of almost like tortillas out of it. Why do people do this to trees? Well, one thing, you know, you can,
a certain direction.
well, you see all the decay that's happening up into the tree. So when we talk about, when we get scratched, right, we heal. Sometimes we have a scar that's left. But trees can't quite do the same thing. What they do is, it's called compartmentalizing. So they have 4 walls. There's a wall in and out here. There's a wall up and down, and then there's a wall this way and this way. So there is this gentleman, Alex Shigo, he talks about compartmentalization of decay in trees. And the weakest wall is up and down. And so that's why when we see a tree with a whole cavity, right, it's also called, a lot of times what you're seeing is this up and down of the hole. And when a tree can't compartmentalize and close off, that's what's happening here. So the tree, as you know, it's telling the wood, grow back over here and close this off. And a lot of times, if people have done this with concrete, the tree's grown all the way back around it, which makes it kind of dangerous if somebody comes to cut it down with a chainsaw, because the chainsaw's not going to go through the concrete. So a human decided they were going to try and attempt to help the tree with all this decay. So they came and they put something up and filled it up with cement. Now, some of the problems with this are, you know, we see the branches moving when there's leaves, right? But this whole trunk moves too. So when we have a lot of wind, the whole tree moves so that it doesn't break. But when we put concrete in it, it doesn't move as much, and so sometimes it breaks, you know, maybe right where the concrete ends. So it's one of those things that it's probably better not to put any concrete inside of a tree. But in the 70s and 80s and even 60s, people started doing this because they thought they were helping the tree. But this one, you know, we've got so much decay, it's going all the way up into there. So I would say, you know, if you're ever here on a windy day, don't stand over there under the tree. Talking about margins with the ligustrum.
The stuff that we pulled on the berry one.
So that edge, if we were looking it up, what would the edge be called? Or the types of edges we could. Smooth, excellent. Okay, an attachment. Is that opposite or alternate? Opposite, because they're opposite of each other, right? And one thing that's kind of cool about ligustrum, even though it's, you know, invasive and not supposed to be here, is you can see the lenticels. So when we talk about how plants transpire or exchange gases with the atmosphere, right, oxygen and carbon dioxide, they have little pores on their leaf, like we have pores on our skin, and those are called stomata. And they actually have 2 cells, and they're called guard cells. And when they're transpiring, those 2 cells open, and then they can exchange gases with the environment, CO2 in or O2 out, and the lenticels do the same thing on the bark. So it's specialized for the bark, but not all plants have lenticels. Kind of cool from tree biology. This one's a little bit harder to tell what type of ash it is once we get to know that it is an ash. Ooh, you guys see all the woodpecker holes on the trunk?
Oh, wow.
What is the woodpecker looking for?
Bugs.
Bugs,
Insects.
right?
Wow, they know how to make it go in a circle.
So the woodpecker is looking for insects, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. If insects were trying to attack this tree, the woodpecker would kind of be reducing their numbers. Y'all want to gather around. Does anybody? Let's look for the bud. Y'all see a bud?
Yep.
Okay, so bud in the axial, right where the petiole meets the stem. So there's a bud, there's a bud. So how is that connected? Is that opposite or alternate?
Opposite.
Opposite, okay, and I accidentally broke that one out. So when we say leaf, we're saying this is a leaflet, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 leaflets to make up the whole leaf on this ash. So that would help us ID too. If we're looking at ID book, it's going to say how many leaflets. And we're going to say 5, 5. Oh, look, there's 7, right? 2, 4, 6, 7. So the ID book may say 7 to 5 leaflets per leaf. Alright guys, do we have opposite or alternate attachments?
I think it's alternative.
Alternate, yeah, so it's not opposite of each other. And how about the edge? Is it toothed? Okay. Have you guys seen the movie Alien?
The what?
The movie Alien? It's from the 80s. There's types of insects that lay their eggs and other insects. The larva develops inside of the insect, and then it...
Almost like how spiders lay eggs inside a wasp nest that the spiders eat the wasp.
So insects do that with plants too. They will insert their little ovipositor, like a stinger. Stinger's a modified ovipositor usually. If a bee has a stinger because only the queen can lay eggs, right? And the workers have a stinger.
Wasps have an ovipositor and a stinger, about the same thing.
And it depends on the wasp. So it's basically laying an egg inside the leaf. And then the plant cells develop differently to basically make a area where the larva eats and develops inside of the leaf. So that little spot on that leaf, is, if y'all want to pass it around, is probably a little insect that's living in there. So let's see, guys. Pecan, what do y'all think? Pecan or walnut?
Pecan.
That's walnut.
Ooh, chambered. Which one was chambered?
Walnut.
Walnut. You want to pass that around?
That's cool.
Hey guys, you want to come closer and look at this one? We were talking about plants that birds like to eat the berries and spread it well. This one, humans don't usually eat the berries. It's hackberry. There are 13 different types of hackberry in central Texas, but you'll see them a lot along fence lines or along creeks, you know, where birds are sitting in trees. But one thing that's interesting about this, there's 13 different types of butterfly species that use the leaf as a larval food. So the caterpillar eats it, right? The butterfly lays its egg on the leaf, caterpillar eats it, and then turns into a butterfly after it pupates. Live oak. So we're in the middle of leaf exchange, right? I was talking about how they're semi-deciduous, so they hold on, or semi-evergreen. They hold on to the leaves most of the year, but right now what they're doing is plants are pretty smart with their resources, so they remove the extra nutrients out of the leaf and then they abscise. There's an abscission zone where there's a hormone that tells it, you know, right there, break off and drop off the plant. So when trees, we've got stems, right? What do you call the stem of a tree?
A trunk?
Trunk, or a bowl is another word for it. So when they grow close to each other, there's a bark gets included. So like, you know, almost like I'm included in this activity.
Package deal.
So what happens is they're both trying to grow the same bark, right? And so that's why it's getting pushed out here. And so what that can make for is a weak union. If we have an ice storm and there was a bunch of ice on here and it was really windy, one of these might rip off because the attachment is not as strong as it would be.
So this is two different trees, but it's the same tree.
They like form
This is
together.
probably one tree, but sometimes they can grow together too. But it's got multiple trunks. So we say all these are the trunks.